Hello, my friend. Welcome. I hope you're having an outstanding day. Happy February. Happy February. We are racing. Oh my gosh, we're racing through 2023. Feels like we just had New Year's, doesn't it? So today, another awesome human being is here having a conversation with me, and we're going to talk about how you could make 2023 pretty awesome by getting your financial house in order, getting your best financial health, right, Pamela?
Yes,
So
exactly.
today I am talking with Pamela Sams, a financial advisor type person. And welcome, Pamela. So good to see you.
Yes, thanks for having me, Heather. It's a pleasure.
My pleasure to see you. Um, so let's just go right into it because the first thing I'm always super curious about is what drew you into being a financial advisor. It's not it's not something typically people dream of when they're young.
Yeah, it's not one of those things that are at the top of the people's list of professions. It's usually doctors, lawyers, that sort of thing.
Right?
And I rarely knew people who actually have that on the top of their list. Most people transition into having a career first, and then transition into financial advisor, being a financial advisor, and that's basically what happened to me as well. So, kind of, my undergraduate degree is actually in marketing and journalism, so that has a
Wow.
solid background. I wanted to go get an MBA, thinking I was going to also do marketing and then start taking a lot of the finance classes because you do have to have that with your MBA program. And uh, management, MBA financial management, then was thinking I was going to do something totally different, like banking, and make the big bucks that way. And then I had two kids back to back in graduate school, so that probably was going to
Oh my
happen.
gosh.
Working 80 hours a week doing investment banking, so I took a sabbatical for about a year and a half, trying to figure out my next. Family, my dad got sick, and then my mom was taking care of him. Unfortunately, he passed away, and then leaving my mom as a widow. So in that interim, I was actually able, me and my siblings, to help her really figure out her finances on her own. So I started really figuring there was other women similar to my mother that needed help in their financial lives planning. So, but a few months later, 2022, I'm sorry, 2002, I
20
got to
years.
help
That's a big
women
jump.
achieve financial success. Yeah, it's a big jump. Yeah, no, big jump. But 21 years is January of 2002 is when I started practicing really with the message by really my mother.
I'm I'm losing you for that last bit.
Uh,
I
did I
didn't
blip?
hear the last. Yeah, I didn't hear the last part. I think your internet just blipped a little bit.
I have no idea why. Okay. Do you edit these things?
Not usually. I'll edit this part. I usually just play them as they
Oh,
are.
not
I call
usually.
it real life. I'll ask you this because
Oh,
I am going
really?
to cut this. I'm going to cut this part out about the you cutting out. Are you hardwired in, or are you just
Mhm.
going through the Wi-Fi?
Just going through the Wi-Fi.
Because sometimes it's just because you're going through the Wi-Fi that the processing takes longer. So I don't know if you have the
Mm.
ability to hardwire yourself in.
Uh, I could probably try to find a
No,
cable.
not if it's going to take you a while to find something.
Okay.
But yeah, but when you were talking about you talked about 21 years and then
Mhm.
it kind of you were gone.
Oh,
So
so 21 years, and like I said, January of 2002 is when I started my practice, really with the sole mission to help women achieve financial success. Helping women. Most of my clients are single by choice, divorced and widowed women.
right,
And I just recently posted on LinkedIn that I did celebrate the 21 years in January, and I quoted the Mark Twain quote: "Is you don't work a day in your life if you find something that you enjoy doing." So I enjoy doing what I do for the last 21 years. Have met with thousands of people to help them, is particularly women, with their money.
right. And it is true that there is that. So I'm your mom, and I can just think of kind of that, and maybe it's not just that age range, but I think of that age range as didn't always have responsibility for the money, and then they find themselves suddenly in this situation where they don't know what to do. And
Hmm.
so great. Do you find there's similarities in different generations, or do you just find women in general think about money differently or handle it differently?
It is generational. My mother was part of what they call the Hope generation. So post, well, during the Depression, she was born in 1930, and so
Right.
a whole different view about money, and also how women probably did not take care of the household finances that was left to the men. She had basic knowledge, of course, on the day to day, but looking at the overall longer term, investing and financial planning and all of that wasn't involved, and a lot of women do. But I think right now Gen Zs are a little bit more intuitive when it comes to their money, more engaged, and do a lot more research. So, but it is a generational thing when it comes to women and their money.
And I think maybe part because maybe women are staying single longer, you
Hmm.
kind of have to look after your own finances a little bit because nobody else is doing it for you, right?
Exactly. You're exactly right. Because that's what working with a demographic to be on their own with their finances. It's a heightened awareness of what's going
Yeah.
on in their lives with in terms of their money.
Yeah. And do you find that there's different concerns for women for planning their financial health, or is there's something that they specifically would think about differently?
Hmm. I think the overarching concern for most is I'm making sure I'm not going to run out of money, that I'm going to be okay, that I'm not going to, be eating dog food or cat food. I get that a lot. Is like making sure I have enough money that I'm not going to be eating cat food or dog food, because women tend to live longer, and
Right.
so we make sure we have enough resources if you're going to live, or at least planning for. I always tell my clients planning for a 30 plus year retirement. That looks a lot different if you're on your own versus if you had two people that you're working towards. So that has always been the underlying concern, is making sure I have enough money. I'm not going to be a burden to family or friends or anything like that, that I can take care of myself and that I have security.
Right. It's so funny. I was actually thinking about that the other day. I don't want to eat dog food or cat food. I don't know. That price of gourmet dog food, I don't think I could afford that now.
I know. I was just joking with a potential client the other day. I said I could probably at least give you get you to premium dog food, because that's a lot. You look at
Right.
these commercials, you're like, wait, they're eating better than some humans.
They are. It's so crazy. Oh my gosh. Animals have become your children, I guess, for some people. So they get
Exactly.
better treats than the people do.
They
But
do.
it is true. I mean, you want to be in that place where you can live in that lifestyle that you've always lived without having to sacrifice, and stop being
Hmm.
able to go to the coffee shop if you want, and all those things. And I guess I remember when I was in university, the statistics class about how women always live longer,
Hmm.
and the joke was men just can't take it anymore, so they check out.
They check out. Yeah, exactly.
We wear them out. But
Hmm.
so is there something like when I guess everybody would be individual,
Hmm.
how you help them. But there's, if someone is just starting or doesn't know where to start, where do they usually start helping them kind of get a handle of what their financials are and what's going on for them?
Yeah, for the most part, you got to start from the basics, which is how much are you bringing in, and then how much is going out. A lot of times, people don't want to hear the dreaded B word, which is budget. But for the most part, and I don't like to use budget so much because it has some, I guess, negative connotation for people, because they think it's more of being deprived of something. So I like to use kind of financial roadmap, really understanding what are you earning, and then how much what you're spending money on, and that can be everything from the basics to like you said, the nice things you want to do, going to the coffee shops, or buying things that you want. So I always go through a needs wants analysis with clients, telling them to put on, kind of the old fashioned T chart. What do you actually need, and what are your wants in your budget, and then really understanding if there's a way to reduce, eliminate um, something out of their budget that they don't need, or out of their financial roadmap, so to speak. So that's really where you start with the basics. Is financial planning is fairly simple. Life planning with money matched to it. So what are you really what are your resources, making sure you are living within your means, and you're not overspending, because then that's where you get into trouble. So that's the
Right.
basics, is really what do you have coming in, what are you spending, and then what that is, the difference between the two, hopefully is a positive number. That's your margin, and then that's what you fund your financial goals with: the retirement, saving for a new house, your children, whatever the case may be. But that's kind of the first building block, is really understanding cash flow management, what's coming in and what's going out.
Right. I think sometimes people think budget, the word budget goes in the same category as the word diet.
Yes, exactly.
It's like,
I'm being
no,
deprived of food. I'm being deprived of the things that I want with my money. So yes,
right?
it's the same category.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, at some point, people don't always want to take a look at what where their money goes. People will complain, "Oh, I'm always broke. I have no idea why," but they won't take that step to look at it.
Hmm.
And I was actually running a webinar recently, and it was not just money that we were talking about, but I was mentioning it, or I said to them, quite honestly, if you don't take that time to really be honest with yourself and see where you are, then you can't change it, right? So it could be a bit traumatizing, I guess, if you realize where all your money is leaking out and you don't want to change.
Hmm.
So you can
Yeah,
always find a way
yeah,
to,
it is. It's
find
a
it.
an awakening that
Yes,
you have, and I call it the ostrich syndrome. If you don't want to look at it, it won't get any better. You have to understand where things are, and then that's when you can start making adjustments or course correction. So either you're going to make more money, let's say if you're spending way more than you're earning, do I increase my income? Do I change careers where I can make more money? Or how do I look at the other side of the fence, which is how do I reduce what I'm spending money on? That could be, do I live in a cheaper place to get cheaper rent? Do I uh, not drive a car, and if I'm close to public transportation, maybe I save money there, or maybe not buy the top of the line car. Maybe I do, something different where I can influence things that you have control over, which is
right.
basically your spending, is where you need to focus in on. But you do have to take a look at it. Unfortunately, no ostrich syndrome.
No ostrich syndrome. It's funny because when everything closed in March 2020 and everything was shut for a while, was and I mean I keep quite good track of where I spend money, but I really hadn't sat back and looked at how much I spent at Starbucks until it was
Mhm.
closed for 6 months. And I realized, wow, I must have been spending a lot of, and I don't even drink coffee, which is even funnier. So, I mean, it's like sometimes, even when you're knowledgeable and if you don't take that time at least once a year to look and what you're doing and where it's going, you do have that ostrich syndrome. And
Mhm.
it's not even always on purpose. It can just be time is passing and you don't recognize kind of what's going on
Mhm.
and what's happening. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah. And then looking at it, and some people are more visual. I do the exercise every year where I take a look at it. I use some really good budgeting tools where you're able to see nice pie charts, and then it'll tell you, like you said, how much you're spending on, Starbucks or coffee or getting your hair done or whatever. And then you'll see it big chunks out of your budget, and you go, oh my gosh. And then it becomes budgeting is an awareness tool first.
yeah.
So it's really looking at, okay, if I spent X amount of dollars on eating out, that's the one thing in everybody's budget that is notorious for people overspending, is really dining out. We become creatures of habit where we want to quick something. We eat out a lot, we dine out a lot. So that tends to be where people overspend. And so if it's, an amount of money that you're spending monthly on it, $400 or $500 on dining out, maybe you cut that in half. Maybe I do $200. Not depriving yourself, but just understanding there could be a reduction in that, and then you can buy the rest with groceries and cook at home. But putting parameters, that's what I like to call it. Knowing and being aware, but also putting parameters around what you're spending.
Right. And it's not like you're going to live the life of a hermit and never go out and have
Exactly.
fun. You
Yes.
just consciously, intentionally decide when you're going to do it.
Yes.
Have you ever looked at it? Because you mentioned that you look at what you're bringing in and what you're moving out, and then the rest is what you're going to put away. Have you ever looked at it? I've heard it talked about the other way around, the pay yourself first model, where
hmm
you take out, that's how much I'm going to put into my savings, and then the rest just has to make up the difference.
hmm Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely looking at paying yourself first. Either through your retirement plans or having a systematic savings program where you're putting the money for a cash reserve to build up. Things for emergencies that pop up. So really carving that out first. And then, of course, anything left after that, you would allocate to your goals. But yes, that's a way to do it as well.
Do you find people have a preference?
Um, a lot of times, if you work it the other way, and it's like whatever's left over, then it's not going to be left over. That's what happens. People tend to spend pretty much everything that they have, and I've seen, people making $20,000 a year, and then some that are making well over $1 million a year. It's the same situation. If you have it, you're going to spend it. Unfortunately, unless you capture it first. So I always tell people to try to pay yourself first. You know what you have for your financial goals, putting money away for retirement, putting money away for cash reserve, insurance programs, whatever it is, putting that aside. And then if there is extra margin, do you allocate it towards any program or do you just put it aside on the sidelines for additional cash?
Vacation.
Or vacation. Yes, or vacation. Exactly.
Have a vacation fund if
Yeah,
you
have a vacation
can. Oh
for
my gosh.
exactly.
I say that jokingly. We have a vacation fund where we have money allocated.
Yeah, you do need that. That's why I go through all of the goals, even from, I want to take a vacation or, I need to buy a new car in the next couple of years,
Right.
knowing where the resources are going to come from. That's always my question is that, okay, you're going to do this, have this particular goal. Where's the money going to come from? Where are you paying for it? Is it
And
out
it's
of existing uh, funds that you have, or you're going to save it, or, God forbid, hopefully not borrow it, but
well, I
I
was
need to
gonna
know
say, yeah.
where's it coming from,
Like at
so you
one
know
point,
where you are.
I remember at one point, way back when I was a kid, if you wanted something, you saved up to get it.
hmm
And now it's become so easy to, maybe not right now, but at one point it was pretty easy to, oh, I'll just get a credit card and buy it and pay
Yep.
it off
Yeah.
later. Or I'll
And pay
just
it
get a
off
bank
later.
loan and I'll pay it off later. But those things are so creepy. Like, I feel like credit cards are legal money launder or loan sharks, legalized loan sharking because of the interest rates that they charge,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people don't realize how quickly you can get underwater with that. I mean, you thought, well, I'll just pay it off later, but if you don't
hmm
have that discipline to actually pay it off, then you end up further behind than if you just saved your money to buy it sometime later. Delayed gratification, we're not so good at.
We're not so good at it as a society. We're not good at delayed gratification. That's why, like I said, I'll put it on a card. I'll figure out how to do it later. And even with clients, when I work, okay, that's fine. Let's put. You want to put it on the card, but let's have a debt reduction strategy so you're not accumulating too much debt or interest on that. So that 5,000 now turns into 6,000, and yeah, over time, and then these buy now pay later situations, I'm sure they probably have it
Oh, yeah.
all over. Is that's even worse because some of the interest rates are really, really high on that, and the payments are higher even. But a lot of the merchants are saying, okay, especially during COVID, it was like, the credit cards were different. So they came out with a buy now, pay later type of situation. And those are really notorious bad for people because the payments are high, the interest rates are high, and it seems like a vicious cycle that you're really never able to get out of it. You can get stuff right away based on that, but if you unless you have a strategy to save it, to buy it, it's probably best to do so versus the buy now pay later situation.
Yeah, they don't pay for a whole year and it seems like it's forever.
Exactly.
But as
Yeah.
I said at the beginning, it's already February.
Yeah.
So
I know.
time goes really
Time
fast.
goes by really, really fast. And so, yeah, some of these, 0% for 6 months. And then next thing you know, 6 months later. And then people read the fine print, but if you don't pay it within that time period, then all of the interest comes back on that. So have a game plan to pay it
Whoa.
off within that time period if you're going to use some of these strategies. It looks good on the surface, but unless you have a way to pay it off within the time period that they tell you to, it's best to have the cash on hand if you can.
Right. And this is something that I've seen a lot advertised lately, and I'd be interested in your opinion on the whole reverse mortgage for
Hmm.
seniors who own their homes. It seems it feels like a bad idea to me, but I'm sure there's reasons why it wouldn't be.
Hmm. It's a strategy that some people use. You have to understand what the rules are. Of course, with reverse mortgage, if you own your home, you're able to basically you get a payment out of it if you're strapped for cash. Those are usually people who have their homes paid off, and then they're basically house poor and cash, house rich and cash poor.
Right.
That they don't have the resources. Just know at the end that the bank owns your home. So if there's any reason why your family or your loved ones want that property inside, to have the property, then a reverse mortgage probably would not be a good idea because at the end of it, you're not going to have the property available. You've gotten the payments out of it, but it's bank owned, or you have to buy it back from the bank, and that's not a situation you want to be in. But for people who may not have relatives that they're going to leave the property to, or there's no attachment to the property,
Right.
but you need immediate cash, then it may be a good thing. So it's really evaluate if it's best for your program. And of course, with anything, make sure you consult a financial professional and a tax professional on the implications of a strategy like that.
Yeah, it may seem like a good thing on the surface, but if you don't
Mhm.
know your personal details, I
Exactly.
I guess I always felt like, "Oh my gosh, that seems like such a terrible idea." But yeah, when you put it that way, I can see where there would be people who would really have a better quality of life if they needed that cash flow and there was no one really concerned what happens at the
Mhm.
end. Also, you never
Yeah,
really know how long you're going to live, right?
that's great.
I mean,
That's right.
statistics will tell you one thing, but my mother-in-law just turned 96. So,
Mm, yeah.
and I know someone who has an aunt who's 106. It's like,
Mm,
wow,
yeah, yeah.
like
And
people are living a long time.
people are living a long time. I think this is statistically, I saw this is probably the most centenarians that we've had. That people are living well into their hundreds. So, like I
Wow.
said before, planning for really having resources for 30 plus years, having more life than money sometimes, or
Yeah.
how do you deal with it? I always tell clients I don't have a crystal ball, but if I didn't predict this right, you have to come and live in my basement. So, I don't have anybody living in there yet. So,
Hey, I don't know if that's good or bad.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
And you were telling me that you're speaking at no, it's both virtual and live, right? A summit
Uh-huh.
coming up.
Yeah, yeah. It's a Women in Technology Summit. So I'm going to be talking about some of the emerging trends in wealth management services, the AI people have probably read about Chat GPT and a lot of different things that are coming out. So I'll be talking about some of those things that are going on in financial services as it relates to technology for that
Is
conference.
that for people working in the sector, or is that for just people who are interested in what's going on?
Both, but mainly people who are in that sector. But it is open to both.
And it's interesting the AI trading bots, the ones who
Hmm.
I can't remember what they call them. It's like they do the trades for you, or they figure it out based on. How are they trending? Are they doing a good job with their trades versus real people, or
Hmm.
who knows?
Who knows? I mean, always having a human element, because the algorithms will do basically what they're trained to do or programmed to do. Understanding a person's financial situation overall and how it fits is still keen with that versus doing a bot. So I mean, I know people have their opinions on that, but if you are really truly looking at a financial planning relationship, it's probably best to have maybe a combination where you're still having some human interaction that understands you as a person,
Yeah.
understand your financial needs, and then how does it apply to your investment strategy.
Yeah, I don't feel ready to hand my money over to a bot at this
Yeah,
point.
exactly.
I like being able to talk to my real human and have a
Hmm.
conversation about this and that and why this and why that. But yeah, it's I just see them advertised a lot these days. And the Women in Tech Summit, it's in March.
It's in March, yes. The It's in DC,
Okay,
and then I think they do have a virtual component to it, but it's WITS, Women in Tech Summit. So you can probably take a look at it or
cool.
Google it.
I'll probably throw it in the show notes for people who are going to look for it, just so that because I know there's going to be people who think that would be pretty cool to go and watch,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And do you, so because I know that you have this download,
Hmm.
it's called Unlock Your Money Blocks. Do
Yes.
you, and I think you've got it as specifically for women. Is that how you've written it?
I do. I have it. We tend to have, unfortunately, more challenges when it comes to our money, and blocks where we are able to achieve the things we want to because we have these mental situations that are going on. So I have a background in behavioral finance, a designation.
Okay,
It's called a behavioral financial advisor. So it's a BFA, not bachelor's of fine arts, but it's a behavioral financial advisor, and it talks a lot about, or I have conversations with my clients about how they grew up with money, how money was handled in their household, how were their parents with money. We learn our money behaviors by the age of 6. So depending on what our environment was when we grew up, we have basically those same type of viewpoints and behaviors that operate in our background that we may not even be aware of, that prevents us from achieving financial success. So that's what it talks about, unlocking your money blocks, because everybody has them. Is it hindering you? Are you able to move forward? So the download or the ebook that's available will address that and then show you how some ways to unlock those.
and I mean it's interesting. I don't know if it's the industry that I'm in, but I see it discussed a lot more than I think it used to be about how people have all of this experience when they're young that they don't even recognize has created the environment for them to be where they are now. And some people don't believe it. But
Mhm.
if you really dig into it, you can say, "Oh, yes, that's why I do that." And it's interesting. So, have the studies shown it's up to the age of 6 that most
Mhm.
of the imprinting comes? And I guess you don't have discernment up to that age, really.
No, it's just what you learn, around 6 or 7, but it's basically what you grew up with. So, did you get an allowance, or if you got money, what did your parents tell you? My parents grew up in the Depression era, so it was a lot about frugality and
Right?
saving money, not about a whole lot of spending. So, I tend to be that way. Me and my husband have discussions all the time on, I'm like, hey, let's save to buy that. And he's on the mission. He's like, hey, we can put it on a credit card and do it later type of thing. So it does have bearing on how you look and view and deal with your money on a day-to-day basis as well.
It is true. My husband and I, when we first started dating, we called that the ant and the grasshopper approach. So
Exactly.
he was the ant and I was
Hmm.
the grasshopper. And I can remember when I was young I think my allowance was 25 cents or something. You know, you're a little kid. And what would I do with it? Go to the store and buy 25 penny candies.
Yep. I remember penny candies too. I
And they
know.
were in open jars. Oh my God.
I know. So you're just grabbing a handful out of there and doing that. I
Yeah.
know. It's funny because I tell my kids, they're basically, Gen Zs and such, telling them about the penny candy thing, and they're like, "What? Candy used to be a penny?" Uh,
You get a
but
whole
that,
bag.
yeah, you can get a whole bag of it. But a lot of times the philosophy, people, my parents, it's like you save some, you spend some, and then you basically give some to charity or something. So it's like a three-pronged approach to money. But depending on that, I have some clients whose parents were really frugal, some that were really spendthrift, and so it can work either way. So if you have a parent that's fairly spendthrift and you didn't have any, it could have the reverse where people are like, I don't
Right.
want to do that. So I'm really hoarding money and I'm not spending money on anything. So
Right.
you have that challenge, or you have somebody who definitely mirrors their parents and then they're spending a lot more money and they're not saving anything. So
Right. Yeah.
understanding where your money biases and your blocks are, in order to achieve financial health is one of the things that the ebook will address.
Right. And does it talk about retail therapy?
Probably not as much, but that does, come up a lot of times. Is that I do have clients that come to me. It's like, you're gonna have to definitely put me on a budget because sometimes I'll have bad days, or or vice versa. If they have really good days and they want to reward themselves, retail therapy happens.
Yes. It's a real thing. Oh my gosh. And because I've had friends who I know who used retail as therapy, and I can just remember being in a store with one of them, and we weren't very long out of university, and she had her first credit card, and she was having a good old time, and she went to buy some another outfit, and they told her her card was declined, and she said, she only had it a month. She said, declined? How is that possible? And then she went, oh.
Oh yeah. Oh, let me add that all up.
Yeah. I mean, and it took her a long time to get herself back from under there. And retail therapy, I guess, yes, I always spent all of my allowance, but retail therapy, the consequences of it frightened me. So I never let myself
So you
go that far over the edge.
exactly.
I try also not to eat a whole bag of candy anymore
Yeah,
because,
I think,
oh my
yeah,
God,
and when you get older, definitely not.
definitely not.
Probably for the dentist, but not.
And in your Unblock the Money Blocks book, what do you think is the most common one that you see?
Mhm. The one that I see the most is really being fearful of either using their resources for additional gains. So, like I said, sometimes people get so stuck that they don't know what to do. I call it an analysis paralysis, basically.
Oh, right,
So you know what you need to do, but you don't know where to turn, and so you don't do anything. And so
right,
that's a money block in itself because you're not sure where you need to. So really having professionals that you can work with that'll kind of help you through the money blocks, really, where you can understand what you need to achieve and then be able to execute and move forward with that. That's what I see a lot of times is really people just being analysis paralysis, having some blocks, not ensuring how to clear the blocks enough to make positive moves for their financial health.
right. And I mean, I always go to professionals. I mean, I joke with people. I'm like, I'm not going to go to a plumber and ask him about, my liver. So I'm
Hmm.
not going to go to somebody who's not qualified to talk about my money. And I think sometimes people, because there's a lot of people out there now selling financial products and talking about financial products, maybe they just don't know where to go anymore. Do you think that's part of the paralysis?
Yeah, it's we're inundated every day. I can't remember the stat, but we have so many messages that we are presented with every day. From TV to internet, all of these different things, and you're just not sure where to turn or who to listen to.
Right.
So really, chatting with family and friends who may be working with an advisor or have a really successful relationship. That's where you want to start first. People that you know and you trust, and that will be able to provide some resources to you. Because some of these things, like you said, you may be fearful because you're not sure, if you're going to be scammed or if this person's credible. And so, do your due diligence. Really, anybody that you speak with, make sure they are, properly licensed, that the financial solutions they come up with are viable. They're not going to be scams or anything like that.
Right.
So really, doing your homework.
Yeah. Um, and I think Canada and the US are fairly similar in the designations that they give people for
Hmm.
financial advisors.
Yes.
And I guess understanding the differences between ones who work for a bank or ones who are
Hmm.
independent. And yes,
Yes.
I always encourage people to take responsibility for the things in their lives that they want to improve and to be healthy and whatever healthy looks like. And
Hmm.
it might take a little research on your part, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. And making sure a person is a fiduciary, that they're able to work in your best interest, that they're not just selling products and services if they make big commissions on, or because that person doesn't have your best interest, because things they present, they may get paid, bigger commission or commissions on. So the true fiduciary advisor really works always in your best interest and present solutions that are as such.
right. Yeah, that's an important distinction for
Hmm.
sure. So good. So much good information. Man, you're a resource. People need you and more of you in the world,
Yes,
right?
yeah, I know. It's like it's. I always tell people this is not your grandparents, financial planning or retirement. It's a lot different landscape these days. Before you got to go watch, you sat at home on the porch, and you lived a few years in retirement, and then it was all said and done. It's just so many different variables these days. And I always tell people the retirement planning, financial planning is really, like you said, it's not a do it yourself type of situation. You won't do your own plumbing, you won't do your own auto mechanic. You really
Yeah.
need to have somebody specialized to help you with the journey of
Yeah.
financial wellness and financial health.
Even cars are too complicated now. You can't do your own oil changes
You can't even
anymore.
do
It's
your own.
like,
Exactly. You can't do that anymore. My dad taught me how, get under there and, get the oil pan, all of that. I was like, can I just take it to Jiffy Lube or something?
yes, that's what I do. I actually do go to Jiffy Lube. Forget it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing
I'm not
it.
doing that. I know how, but I'm not going to go under there and do
I
that.
could change my own tire, but I have the auto
Yeah,
service do it instead.
exactly. You have all of these different resources available to you. Same
Oh
thing
my
with
goodness.
financial
So good.
services. If you don't know, if it's not your day to day job, some people try to skimp out and just spend a little bit of time doing it. Most people spend more time planning their vacations than they actually do their retirement or their financial plan. So you want to spend the time to do it, and if you don't have the time to do it, really seek professional advice if you're not going to put committed to putting it full force into it.
That's a crazy stat.
It
Spend
is.
more time planning your
Yeah.
vacation because
Hmm.
your vacation is what, 1 or 2 weeks?
Yeah, 1 or 2 weeks.
Your retirement could be 30 years.
It could be 30 years. Exactly.
Okay.
But that's not fun. Like, if you're planning to go to Bahamas or Hawaii or something, that's fun to plan. But, planning for 30 plus years retirement may not be as fun to do.
Maybe, but much more of a payoff.
Much more of a payoff as well. And, one of the things that I get a lot of times is people, because they don't think about it a whole lot, is what are you really going to do? The money piece is really important. That's in the forefront, but a lot of times people don't really think about the lifestyle. What are you going to be doing with 24/7 now for 30 years? You got
Yeah.
to fill in the time as well. So those are some of the things that I employ people to do, is really understand what are you going to be doing, where you want to live. It's just as important of how much you need to live in retirement.
Yeah. Super important.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank
Pamela.
you. Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed our conversation.
Absolutely. But before we go, I always ask people, my awesome humans, if you have a final word of wisdom. I mean, I know you've given tons of wisdom, but if there was something you just wanted people to really take home with them.
Hmm. I'm probably gonna steal a tagline for Nike and just say, "Just do it." Especially with finances. People, during this time of the year, January, February, people are gun ho, and then by the time they get to March, April, back to the same habits. Really, just do it. What I tell people is to spend some time with their finances on a consistent basis. I call it a financial date night, either with your spouse or even by yourself, to see what the state of the union is with what's going on with your finances. That could be once a month, it could be twice a month, but just make sure you put it into your schedule. And you don't have to do a whole thing. What did I bring in? How did I do this month financially? Did I spend less? Did I make more money? What did I do with my resources that came in? So really making it a habit of looking at your finances and your financial health on a more consistent basis with that.
I love it. Financial date night. And you can have a bottle of wine if you want. If
And
it's
that's what I tell people, if it makes it more relaxing, wine and cheese, whatever you need to get yourself to sit down and do it. And then, like you said, with retail therapy, maybe that's your reward. I get a chance to
right,
sit down with a nice, wine and cheese, some olives and, tapas or whatever. And you look at your finances for 20 to 30 minutes. Maybe
right.
that's your reward.
I like it. I like it. I'm putting that in my calendar. I actually wrote it down while you were talking because I think it's brilliant. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thank you,
Thank you very much,
Pamela.
Heather.
And my friends in podcast land, go and check out that download. The link is in the show notes. Go and check your money blocks because we all have them. No matter how much you have, I'm guarantee you're going to discover something. And unblock those blocks, my friends. Take care, and I will see you